Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, with me, your host, Mark Decano. You know, there's no substitute for the word comedy in my book, because none of it would make any sense if I just start using random words. So to help me find good words, I've asked people in and around the world of comedy that I admire and respect to define what it means to them. I love talking to comedians about comedy, and if you like to hear what they have to say as much as I do, then please like, subscribe, rate, review and share the podcast. Thank you. When my guest this episode was facing political instability, social upheaval and questionable dietary choices, she came to the UK anyway. Leaving her native Argentina and coming to London to steal our jobs and our women, she's earned them. One of the hottest new comedians on the circuit, Victoria Olsina.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm really excited to talk to you, so if you're happy and you're ready, we'll dive straight in.
Yeah, I'm happy, I'm ready, I'm excited, Mark. Thank you.
So, growing up in Argentina, I mean, is there a comedy scene in Argentina? How did comedy come into your life?
So growing up in Argentina, when I was a child, I always watched comedy. Now I can realize that there are some Argentinian comedians which it wasn't stand-up comedy. It was mostly sketch comedy. It was on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a form of stand-up, but I would say it's more of a storytelling. Stand-up is quite recent. The first time I saw someone doing stand-up in Spanish in Argentina, there is this famous YouTuber, Malena Pichot, which I think it was the first Argentinian stand-up comedian that caught my eye. And I was like 20 years old. Before that, I watched a lot of comedy sketch shows in Argentina. Mm-hmm. Saturday Night Live, I used to love it as a child. The Nanny, The Simpsons, which is, I mean, they have a comedic factor. It's not stand-up comedy, but I felt fascinated. I loved Saturday Night Live. I really loved it. Whose Line Is It Anyway? So I think those are the biggest influences when I was a child. My parents also watch a lot of comedy. Most of these programs were introduced by them to me. And they used to watch a lot of Argentinian comedy, a lot of people that I'm not going to mention because you're not going to know them. But yeah, I think I always watch comedy until I realized that there is this stand-up comedy thing, which I believe is American. It's not from Argentina the way that we do comedy. I mean, I have spoken to other international acts that they also told me that there was not such thing as stand-up in their country while they were growing up.
Right.
So it's fairly contemporary. Now there is a stand-up scene, and there's a stand-up scene in English in Buenos Aires, which is a very international city. So,
right.
I don't know. Hopefully one day I perform at my own country.
How familiar are you with this new stand-up scene in South America?
I know some of the people who are performing right now.
Right.
One of them got stranded in COVID in London, and we had to become friends. I forced her to become friends. That's the story. This is one of the contemporary comedians that performed with this other comedian that I told you, Malena Pichot. Ana Carolina is her name. She's mostly performs. All of them perform in Spanish.
Right.
That's the thing. I don't know any other comedian besides Lucila and myself who are Argentinian.
Yeah.
And that perform in English. It's a very stupid thing to do if you think about it. Why would you do that in another language that is not yours? Nobody knows. Desperation. I feel a need to be understood.
Right.
By people who will never understand you. But you try, really. You really try.
With your familiarity of comedy in Spanish, then with your experience, I mean, there must be linguistic nuances as well as cultural nuances.
I have always been told that I'm pretty funny in Spanish and in English. but of course, naturally funny. In Spanish more than in English. I think it comes across more because I'm more free and I can express myself in a million other ways that I wouldn't be able to do in English. But I have never done comedy in Spanish.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. There was a conference. I have a job, believe it or not. How is she not on TV, considering her talent for comedy, her eloquence when speaking English? Nobody knows. So I have a job. I have my own company, and I do search engine optimization for tech companies, mostly in the crypto and blockchain space. Fascinating. There are many conferences in English and Spanish, more in English than in Spanish, but now people are organizing these kind of conferences in Argentina as well. They booked me to do a 10-minute set in the biggest conference in Spanish that there is right now in Argentina. Mm-hmm. This was going to be my first set. It was going to be pre-recorded because it was for COVID times, and they didn't approve my script. What? What? Why didn't they approve my script? Because I said that in this industry, SEO, search engine optimization, there are more men than women. And apparently that wasn't something that would upset sponsors and guests. So I told them to fuck themselves, and I didn't perform. I don't know if I can say things like this if you're going to be.
No, you say whatever you like.
Okay, so I'm available for booking for conferences. Very flexible.
For conferences.
For conferences.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you got your start in comedy then. So 2019, Logan Murray, is that correct?
Yeah, you have been doing your research, even though now I say 2020. No, actually, yeah. So that people say, how long has she been going? 1 year. No, 2019, Logan Murray. Yeah. Let's go back to my conference life. I was doing a lot of conferences in SEO. Not in SEO, for SEO, which is my job. Mm-hmm. I feel these conferences are incredibly boring. I generally go, I present my slides and I leave. I don't want to have contact with anyone in this industry. This would be great if then people on LinkedIn see this this comedy podcast and said, she actually hates every one of us. Yes, people in SEO are incredibly boring. Most of them are Disney adults, which Olga Koch explains very well on her last show. And on Twitter, they just talk about SEO, right? So SEO is their whole personality. Mm. I never fit well there, and but I also in those kind of environment. But I also wanted to impress people. So the first conference I was booked, I was working at Barclays, SEO at Barclays. That was my life. And I was booked explicitly for a very, very big conference because they told me we need a woman.
Wow.
This is pretty Me Too. We need a woman. Okay, I'm a woman. I can speak up to a certain degree. I know about SEO. I have conducted a quite interesting project for Barclays in terms of SEO. Maybe people want to hear about it. Now, this topic had already been covered by every other of the speakers. Mm-hmm. And all of the other speakers were really big deals in the industry. So I said, what am I going to do with this? I mean, like, I'm not better than any of these people. I'm the most junior here. They only put me because they need a woman. The only thing I can do is to be funny.
Yeah.
And I did that. And the moment I went down, I came out of stage, the organizer asked me if I did stand-up comedy.
Right.
And I said, no, well, maybe you should. And from that moment on, I kept, like, for a month or two, I kept hearing a lot of people saying, oh, you're so funny, do something about it, including a police report. The policeman said, this is the funniest police report I have ever heard from someone who has just been victim of a burglary. You should do something with it. And then I had a bad breakup. At the moment, I think before I had a breakup, burglary, SEO, policemen telling me I'm funny.
Yeah.
And that happened. That's how it happened. The burglary was a tipping point.
I mean, I've got to ask about that, haven't I? What kind of burglary prompts you to make a funny statement to the police?
Well, I have written about this, but I have never done it live or anything. I'm not going to jump in the bits or anything. I'm just going to tell the story that it was.
Yeah.
So I was victim of a burglary. Someone, a guy with an axe, with a hatchet, broke into my house, into my flat where I used to live before, and I was there at the house.
Wow.
That day, so I was very stressed because of the breakup, because I was changing jobs, I was starting stand up, and one day I was given the good news. I was still working at Barclays, and I really wanted to work for blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and I got a job at the company I really wanted. And that day, I felt very happy. I said, I'm going home early. I'm not going to get smashed with these bankers, Barclays people. You don't have a purpose in life. I'm going home early. I'm going to smoke a joint and relax. So 11 p.m. on a Friday, I was asleep in my house.
Yeah.
And somebody with a hatchet broke in.
Wow.
So, and there's this moment when you first hear the glass, and it's like, is this just normal London not future-proofing anything? And for the first 3 seconds, I thought that. And then I saw a light approaching. It's like, why? This is the moment. I'm not going to die now. And the light approaches. And those seconds, endless seconds. And then there was this guy. I have been victims of crime many times in Argentina, so I just sort of know the procedure.
Wow.
I was waiting patiently, sitting down, and I said, hi. And this person was very anxious. I wasn't anxious because I was just smoking like a joint on my own to celebrate how well I was doing in this new life. Post breakup, I was speaking at conference. I have a new job. I was born to be free, so I was waiting there, very calm after the joint. And he was very anxious. And he said, "Well, don't do anything stupid, blah blah blah." I was in my pajama. Hi, what would I do? What would I do? And well, I gave him all my stuff. You want this as an Argentinian. You know that if you stay alive, you win. Material stuff, you can buy them again, hopefully. So I gave him my tech, and before he left, this lasted like 25 or 30 seconds. I was like, calm, didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But before he left, he apologized. This is the most British thing that has ever happened to me. He apologized. He said he was going through a really bad, rough patch in his life. And he apologized for stealing my stuff.
Wow.
And then he left. And then the police comes, right? The police comes, they have to do the report. They asked me, was he also smoking pot? He's like, of course, officer. So I had to blame it on someone. You blame it on someone that is always that they look a bit more different than you. In general, in Britain, you always blame it on somebody that is less white than you. I blame it on this person. I follow the procedures of this country. Also, in the middle of this thing, I was hearing on the news, these immigrants come to steal the NHS, come to steal the job. And it's like, this person, who I think it was probably second generation Southeast Asian, was stealing from me.
Yeah.
This British person was stealing from me. So this is how it happened, the burglary.
Wow. What an astonishing story. Well, I'm as someone who's never been a victim of crime, I'm glad you're very well after that.
It I thought it was incredibly funny. Like and one day when I do the beat, it will all sound like I made it up. But also that was the first time I was in the newspaper in the UK. The Evening Standard came to interview me. This was before The Guardian. This was before The Guardian talking about my prolific comedy career. The Evening Standard showed to my house to ask me about the burglary.
Okay, well, let's go back to your comedy career then. How did you find that first outing into stand-up?
I like it that you call it my career and not my kindergarten place, like my mom says. Can you paraphrase the question? Because I'm not sure what you mean.
When you did your first stand-up performance, how was that? How did it feel?
Yeah.
What was it like?
I was very nervous, sweating profusely. At the Museum of Comedy, that's where Logan Murray is.
Yep.
You have the showcase.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a kindergarten play. Let's give some credit to my mom. And it was full of friends. Because who else is going to see you perform? You know, we were 10 people, their friends, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt incredible that night because people were laughing and everybody was saying, "Oh, you did so well, blah, blah." But when I see I don't know if I have the recording of that. I think I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember watching that recording 3 months later, 1 month later. It's like, this is not funny. This is profoundly not funny. People were just being British, telling you that you are great when you are not. But it felt good. It felt real in that moment.
Yeah.
And many times when I do a show and I feel I did great, I watch the recording. When I watch it like the next day, I feel, wow, this is one of the best performances of my life. I watch it 2 weeks later and it's like, a month later, it's like, why are you doing this? Why are you still doing this? And this happened to me with most performances. I think the effect gets lower and lower.
Right.
The effect is less and less. Mm-hmm. But even if I watch the LGBTQ Comedian of the Year performance now, almost 6 months later, I would say you still have a long way to go. You won that night.
Yeah.
But you should improve immediately. There is a reason why you are not on TV. And you know it.
Well, there's thousands of comedians who aren't on TV, so, you know.
There's a reason. Mainly you're not straight British middle-class man that went to Cambridge and was part of the footlights thingy. But besides that, Victoria, it might have to do with your skill set.
So from what your experience had been or your understanding of comedy as you were growing up, obviously not so much stand-up, but comedy itself, starting a career or a kindergarten play with your own comedy, was it all that you dreamed or was it something completely alien to you?
I had never dreamed of this. I did it as an experiment. I did it in a moment that a lot of bizarre things like the burglary stuff happened.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to say that when this happened, now there was a series of bizarre things, but when the burglary happened, the building manager had my ex as the emergency contact. We were not together anymore. So he called her, and then she sent me an email saying, I don't remember what's his name. David has just contacted me. Apparently there was a burglary in your house. By the way, Victoria, don't use this as an excuse to get back in touch with me. So I started seeing comedy everywhere. I think these are funny circumstances, but the stand-up comedy or comedy itself is like the way you tell a story. Even if it's a funny story, you have to phrase it in a way, the structure, the way you make jokes. It's different to have funny stories than to be a comedian. Ideally, as a comedian, you can make fun of everything, and you could have good material about the most boring stuff. But if you ask my friends or people who have dated me, I'm on a pathway of really strange things and statistically anomalies happening to me on a very frequent basis. So I did it, like, as I said, because I felt the need to survive. Also, I was in very constrained environments, like corporate, doing SEO, which is pretty technical, at Barclays in Canary Wharf, with the most robotic people I have ever met in my life. And this was my first job in the UK.
Yeah.
So I couldn't understand anything. And I felt like the need to communicate, and to communicate the truth, because in comedy you can say whatever.
Yeah.
And people think it's not really what you think. But if you hear me speaking, like in real life and then in comedy, I said mostly the same things. But it's not the same to say people to say in Argentina we have much more attractive people in real life than on stage. But my belief, I believe in that statement, and I wouldn't be able to, or it would be incredibly inappropriate if I had said that at Barclays. But I would have been a very fair assessment of the workforce, I would say. So to find a way where you can say the things an environment where is allowed to say the things you want to say, which I don't find very often culturally, and also because I was an employee in a bank. Now I have my own company. I work with people that get my vibe, and the meetings can be fun, and there is rapport.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit less constrained now, but at that moment it's like I feel like a pressure. How do you say it? It's a pressure pot when you put
pressure cooker.
Like a pressure cooker. I'm going to explode.
Yeah.
Also, I was incredibly unhappy. I was like, why I'm so unhappy? I came to London. I always wanted to come to London, the promised land by the Spice Girl. I got my first job at Barclays, which was paying like very good money. And why was I so unhappy? If I could do anything, I was going to the theater so often. I was going to really nice restaurants. Why am I so unhappy with my life if it looks like I have everything, or everything I wanted?
Yeah.
So it's a pathway to be a bit less, to get more satisfaction, right? For me, at least.
Yeah.
I don't want to be deeply unhappy. A level of unhappy, because I'm Argentinian and dramatic, but deeply unhappy with your life. Yeah. What would I be? British?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, performing to British audiences, and you talk about being Argentinian. How does a British audience respond, generally speaking?
Well, they don't speak, so they don't respond. What do you mean by generally speaking? How do they respond to the jokes that I make about them? Or
exactly, yes. Comedy. A lot of comedians that I see are quite self-deprecating, but you yourself, and rightly so, talk about I'm very beautiful and I'm Argentinian and we're passionate and we're powerful, and you British, you eat baked beans. I mean, how does a British audience feel about being looked down on? I don't know.
Bullied, roasted.
Roasted, thank you. Yeah.
Well, they love it. It's like it's because ultimately it's you're sadomasochistic, and I don't know. I have been on TikTok, for example. I have been trolled many times, but never somebody has said I disagree with Argentinians being more attractive people.
Fair enough.
Never. For example, it's like I felt that I don't feel people take it offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And because self-deprecating is a value, it's not a value. It's not the ethos of your comedian, but it's also the ethos of the people. Right? It's like, oh, Britain sucks. I don't know why people even come here, except you're from the UKIP or Rishi Sunak's team. But let's talk about normal people. Normal people you can meet normal audience members are Tune It Down or I don't know, Angel Comedy.
Yeah.
It's like British dislike themselves very much. I don't know why. They are constantly ashamed. But they are ashamed of everything besides history, which is fine. Every country fucked it up. Every country fucked it up in the 19th century, 19th and 20th century. Not just the British, the French, and the German, right? Argentina has done atrocious stuff to native people, and history is tragic for most countries. But I don't know what makes, and this is like a comedic research and a question I would like to find the answer for. I don't know what makes British people so embarrassed. The normal ones, not the UKIPs. This is a fairly stable country, a fairly stable economy. You could change the tide. You have to vote differently, but you can change the tide. There are very good things here besides the food and the people. But overall, when immigrants come here, they like it. Immigrants come here and they do things, make money, make out of London, in particularly a home. But I don't know why people here are so upset, and they hate London also. They're so upset about being British and living in London and all of these things. Like, how can you live in London? It's like, have you ever lived in Cordoba? Like, I swear there are worse places to live than London. Or why, if you can live anywhere in Europe, why are you here? All right? It's like, well, here you can make a lot of money, and tax is very low. It used to be low before before Rishi turned into a socialist. There was a lot of opportunity, and taxes were very low. And I'm speaking like a Tory right now. Well, I have a business. It's important for me. I have a business here, so it's important for me. So I don't know why. I think overall I like Britain more than British people. But it's a sign of maturity when people just accept the things.
Yeah.
Accept the things they cannot change.
Accept their fate.
And what is the prey? Give me the prey of addiction programs. Give me the strength to change the things that I can change and accept the things I cannot change.
Yeah.
So I like Britain more than what I say on stage. But in generally, when I bully British people, which is all the time, they like it.
Yeah.
I think it's a refreshing perspective. If everybody's detrimental, if everybody say, "Oh, I'm so ugly that blah 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 blah," and somebody says something different.
Yeah.
I'm just very cocky, and it worked in comedy.
Well, you mentioned a moment ago about the LGBTQ plus new comedian of the year, from which you emerged triumphant. Congratulations.
Thank you. I was the Morocco of comedy.
Nice. You also you were semi-finalist in 2020 in the Funny Women and Two North Down new act. Now, that must have been a very different beast because I think they were over Zoom. Is that right?
The Two North Down wasn't over Zoom. In 2020, I was semi-finalist of Two North Down.
Yes.
This was February 2020, semi-final of Two North Down, and I was saying, this is my year in comedy. This is my year. Nobody can stop me now. 1 month later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when people say nobody can stop you but yourself, 1 month later we're in lockdown for the next year and a half.
Yes.
That's why Funny Women was I was semi-finalist 2 times, this year and that year.
Yeah.
The first time I was a semi-finalist, I was very excited. Now I don't get so excited about Zoom competitions, but those were the first competitions for me. And
yeah,
again, this is still an experiment. I never thought that I would get anywhere with comedy.
Okay.
I thought it would be like, I don't know, football, activities that I have taken socially, and you meet some people, but you understand it's a hobby and you're not going to be good at it.
Right.
I don't know if winning a competition makes you declares you're good, but it looks like a label, right? Like, okay, you could be good. You could take this to another level, which I never thought until this year.
Right.
I didn't think I was good enough. Let's say good enough. That's so out of character. This is because I'm opening my heart in this blog, in this blockchain, in this podcast. I'm opening my heart to the blockchain. Is so much on brand than to say I'm opening my heart on this podcast. I never thought I would win anything or I would do anything relevant in comedy. I have done some little stuff, but well, I hope that I continue to taking this outside of the hobby to a more to feel like an entertainer. Now I feel like I'm doing.
Yeah.
Before, I didn't think that.
All right. Do you feel validated when you perform at these competitions? I mean, if it's not about the winning necessarily, and even to get a few people who sort of say, yes, we think you're the best of what we've just seen, so that must be at least be some sort of small validation to sort of say, yes, I can keep pushing because the next one will be better and the next one will be better.
Well, obviously, I mean, the judges were Zoe Lyons, which I admire very much. Sikisa, who is a colleague that we have. I think we have seen each other perform for the last 3 years, so it's great to see someone like her who has just been alive at the Apollo, then judging and say, I think that you deserve to win. I have seen your process because she was the only one from the judges that has seen me before. She has performed at my night, both Mamas and Clandestina.
Yeah.
I didn't bribe her, if you were thinking about that. But people that have never seen you before, like Zoe Lyon, that said, hey, I think you were the best of this bunch. Evidently, you feel validated from people that are in the industry. And also, this competition also had an audience vote. So to feel validated by both, it's a great thing. And who doesn't like to be cheered by 400 people, 300 people? Everybody wants to take a picture with you. Everybody tells you you're great. It's like you feel like a rock star for the next 48 hours. Like everybody buys you a drink. 3 girls asked me out on the spot. People I didn't know. They asked me out on dates. Like, what is happening? Like, do you really feel this is the right moment? Anyway, I wouldn't have gone on dates with any of these people, but it was just really weird, right? Really weird. Yeah, it reminds me of this guy who he has. What's the name of this guy who? There is a documentary that is called Wire documentary.
I don't know.
And this is the part where I go to very strange. Man on the Wire.
Oh.
It's a documentary about Philippe Petit.
Yeah.
So when Philippe Petit does his the last of his tricks that he will go from one twin tower to the other. The moment he comes out of the wire, the police stops him, but then a woman, a stranger, a strange woman he has just met has sex with him. He has a girlfriend, by the way, and I don't think she was aware of it, but it felt like, you like me because I have just done something that looks like great in the public eye, but do you really like me? Philippe Petit also not so pleasant to the eye, but he did this thing, and suddenly this woman in New York goes and has sex with him. Is that fame?
Well, yeah, so it would seem.
So I feel validated. That's the answer to the question.
Yeah. So tell me about your comedy night then, Clandestina.
I'm glad you can pronounce it properly. I thought I was the only person in the city that could do that. So I named it Clandestina because it means illegal. Also, clandestine is a word in English, but most people don't know that it exists. Therefore, most people cannot pronounce the name of my night. So it's in Spanish, I mean, the name is Spanish, not the night. And it's a queer women-led comedy night.
Mm-hmm.
So there are no, when we started Clandestino, we started under another name, and there were not so many queer comedy nights. Now I think there are 4 or 5, and it continues growing, and it's a good thing to see more diversity in the world. But we started during the pandemic. I think that I started this night because I needed a reason to live during COVID. As you know, as everyone knows, there was no comedy, and I wanted to continue doing comedy somehow. So I did a lot of writing with Laura Lex, and I didn't want to stop. So I had to do something, and there were some shows already.
Yeah.
So I did the Funny Women semifinals online. There was Catherine Bochart and Sarah Keyworth, who were a couple at the time, who had their comedy night online as well.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something. I wanted to have a show, and we started running the show. We was on Zoom, just 60 to 80 people on monthly basis. And it was good to see. This is important. This was important for me first because I could be I could feel like a comedian still, and also it was good to network because I could have access to any comedian, very big comedians, whether they were based in London or not. And a lot of people told me after, performers and an audience, that was one of the best shows they performed that or that they saw during COVID. It's quite challenging to do comedy on Zoom. I don't wish it to anyone, and that's why I get a bit frustrated too when I have to do a competition, when I have to participate online. I understand the logistic. I understand that is the most practical way to do it. But it's not something that I enjoy the most. However, I think that I sort of applaud the courage of Funny Women to be the first ones who did this, and also the people that started doing the comedy night online, like Sarah and Catherine, just from the beginning of COVID. It took me a couple of months to see if this was going to dare to do it. You always say, okay, well, I might fail, but now I feel that nothing happens if you fail. Nothing happens if you don't sell tickets. Nothing happens. It's worse when you don't try, particularly in comedy, that we need more voices, we need new formats. So now, if I needed to try something new, I feel that it would take me less time to actually do it.
Yeah. And of course, taking Clandestina to the Edinburgh Fringe, not only a show that you were in to the world's largest arts festival, but also a mixed bill. So suddenly you're running a night and it's a bigger responsibility on top of performing at the Edinburgh Fringe. How was it? How did it go? How did it feel?
Well, running a night is I always get more nervous about running the night than about performing. And I feel that affects my performance because I want people to have the best time. I want they feel they paid money, the money they pay for the ticket is value. In the case of Edinburgh Fringe, it was free, but in London, this is not the cheapest case. I want people to have a good time, and I want people to feel that they are listening to voices that are not generally represented on mainstream media or mainstream comedy. That's why we put together a queer comedy night for particularly for women. Particularly for women. I feel it's important because it creates community. Gay people, we are like sort of forced to socialize in clubs during the night. You're gay, you live through the night, right? That's where society, this is where you're going to meet your friends, your lovers, everyone. I'm 36 years old. I am cold at night. On days like this, that is 2 degrees below zero. I want to socialize in more organic places. I want to know that I can meet people in other places. So as a person, that's the biggest achievement of that night, to have that people feel represented, that people feel that they can go to a show and have a good time, and they can have a drink or a chat with somebody they have just met, whether it's for friendship or romance or something like that. To create community, it's more important for me to create a community than to have a good comedy show.
Right.
The idea of those things come together.
Yeah.
That's a lot for anyone. And most people that go to Edinburgh Fringe, if you can ask them if they had a good time, they don't. Don't have a good time at Edinburgh Fringe, particularly if you're producing and performing.
Yeah.
I'm happy I went with Charlie George, which is a close collaborator to the night, and she's somebody that wants to see the night succeed. Now she's the resident MC. We are having a monthly show at the Glory.
Yep.
Which hopefully you can come on February 2nd is our opening night. I have Jen Ives and Olga Kopp.
Marvelous.
Charlie and me. I think that's a good lineup. I'm still defining a fifth act. I want to have a token act because this is mostly for queer women.
Yeah.
But I want to have a token act that is that doesn't necessarily have to be a woman or identify as a woman, or that it could be a straight. It could be queer man or a straight woman. That's the token.
Right.
That's queer math. Queer man equals the same in terms of privilege and annoyance than a straight woman. Okay, so because there are acts that will fit very well with my audience, whether they are not women or whether they are not queer. So, for example, one performer that our audience loves, well, because she's brilliant, she's great, is Fatiha El Ghori.
Yeah.
Is a very good. We have had her as a headliner 2 times, and it's always a blast because she's an incredible comedian, but also is a comedian that probably my audience are not so used to see. I don't feel that the people that come to see my show have a lot of contact with a Muslim woman that wears a hijab and her perspective, her jokes, her view of the world.
Yeah.
I want these two communities to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And to understand each other. So people like her, I want in my night. And she loves our night too, so hopefully we can have her back.
So, as well as February 2nd, where else can we find out about where you're performing, what your upcoming shows are? How can we find out about you? Well,
I have a website. You can find me, I have a website, victoriaolsina.com, and I also am on social media. If you go to Victoria_comedian on TikTok or on Instagram, you can see my link tree, and I will give you an effortless link to my website. I'm also preparing a 45. I'm trying to put together everything that I have for a 45-minute work in progress. And hopefully next year we will, at some point, it happens. I only have the plan of putting it together. At some point next year, I want to do this live with people.
Yeah.
I'll let you know if you want to come and see it. But those are and I think that I'm going to dedicate more time to online content this year.
Right.
As well, at TikTok and Instagram. And yeah, those are my plans. You can check my gigs on social media or on my website. And hopefully I have something interesting in a long form content.
Yeah.
Then win awards and people say it's the voice of a generation, something like that.
Yeah.
Like Lara Riccott.
Ah.
I want to be the Lara Riccott of Britain. Yeah, she's I met her, she's lovely. I'm happy to see more Latin American voices represented. For example, Lara Riccott is another person that would suit very well in the clandestine audience, and I want to have those kind of tokens that are brilliant, even though it's not the theme of the night per se. I want to have more voices represented. So come to my show, February the 2nd at the Glory. Tickets are on sale. We have a great lineup. Blah 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 blah. I'm a marketer and a comedian. Thank you. Good night. Is that how you finish your podcast? It's 12. It's midday for the people who are listening now.
Well, we finish always the same way. When I ask the question, Victoria, can you please summarize comedy in a nutshell?
Oh, you sent me an email about this, and I thought I had to prepare something, but I didn't. What is comedy? I think that comedy is a healing exercise for comedians. It's a therapeutic. It's a healing exercise for comedians and for audiences. When you listen to comedy or when you laugh, it's like everything you're going through stops. It's like a temporary relief. It's a social service. It's a temporary relief from pain.
Yeah.
Comedy is a temporary relief from pain. Mic drop. Thank you. Good night. This is for me. Actually, once my therapist said, here in therapy, we come, you deal with things, but the way you transform things is with art. The way you transform things, in your case, is with comedy. So everything that happens that is, I mean, most of the bad things, because we make jokes about, or myself at least, about the things we don't like about the world.
Yeah.
But when you put it into a story, when you make it funny, inside of you, there's something that feels less wrong. That you feel better about the thing that was bothering you before.
Yeah.
That's for me.
Victoria, thank you so much for being my guest. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this podcast. Again, from this exercise that started from a hobby, I never thought I would be interviewed in a podcast.
It's been absolutely delightful. I can't say it any other way. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark.